Welcome back to a new episode of Rich Lessons. On this episode, we are talking about validating your idea. So, for those out there who are aspiring entrepreneurs ready for something new, or just an everyday person with an idea, one thing I will say that Savitra and I get a lot of when people are pitching to us, asking for mentorship, or just conferences or just general conversation. A lot of people say, I have this idea, but I don't want anyone to steal it. So, number one, I'm going to hold my hand when I say this to you. No one cares about your idea, but everybody cares about execution. And so, today's episode is us discussing how to validate the idea and know that it is a good enough idea to start to execute on. How do you execute on it, and how do we actually get to a business? So, today we're talking about validating your business idea. And yeah, I want to start that off. Man, you talk about that often of people not wanting to share the idea from the very beginning because they're scared someone's going to take their idea.
So I actually posted on Threads because I saw someone, not just someone, but every once in a while I'll see a comment or something where someone who claims to be a business guru will say, yeah, don't just be telling people your ideas. You need to get NDAs. You need to do this, and this. I'm like, no one signed an NDA for your idea. No. Like, unless you are some super established and exited multi-million, billion-dollar companies where they know that maybe your next idea needs to be covered by NDA, yeah. No one's signing your NDA. And I said this, and people were like, be humble, just sign NDA. First of all, I received so many decks and pitches from entrepreneurs and founders that it's no possible. And I receive maybe like a couple of dozen every quarter, right? But for investors that actually invest as their job, they're receiving hundreds and hundreds, some people thousands of decks from entrepreneurs. Do you expect these people to sign an NDA for every person that pitches them? Is not realistic, is not feasible, and honestly, any sophisticated investor is not signing.
Red flag.
Absolutely. They're not signing NDA for everything they receive. Now, are there exceptions? Like I mentioned, if you're a super established entrepreneur, it wasn't until much later that investors offered to sign an NDA for me. And that's because, one, we had a lot of traction. We were further along. They understood that they had probably some competition, right, with inside of their portfolios. And so they actually agreed to sign an NDA. But
you
I
just
was actually
on
shocked.
that though. But we're talking Series B, Series C.
Yeah, this was much later.
We're not talking pre-seed, seed. Like, if you go to an investor for your pre-seed round and be like, I need you to sign this NDA, they're gonna look at you like you're crazy, and they're probably gonna easily be like, we'll pass. And it's also, I mean, I know we're kind of getting off while we're doing this, but it's also, I want to mention really quickly to your point, when you are much later and you have traction and or you're established and that investor or the investment firm is really interested, but they think like, oh, this might be some form of competition or overlap with somebody's my portfolio, then yes. But when we're talking idea, again, I'm going to hold your hand when I say this. No one cares about your idea. People only care about execution. So let's get into actually validating the idea so that people, because this is the one thing I also tell entrepreneurs, not all good ideas equates to good businesses.
Right.
Which some people think like, this is an amazing idea. But if you actually take the time to truly validate, through the ideation process, that gives you the answer on if this idea is worth me taking my blood, sweat, and tears, my time, my money, and actually even trying to execute on this. So I'll start for me. One of the first things I do when someone asks about an idea or working to validate the idea, it's very broadly. I'm like, how feasible is it? And I actually start that question by then saying, how many more people are doing it? Mm-hmm. So people seem to discount the fact of like what's your competitive landscape is what it's called. And the reason for that is if you go to an investor or when you're working on an idea, going through your ideation phase, if you get to the point that you say, oh, nobody else is doing this, it might be a reason.
Or maybe you just don't know the person that's trying to do it.
So you need to do more research.
Right. Because one thing that I think founders make a mistake when they're pitching is that they say, oh, we don't have any competition.
Exactly.
That's a red flag to any investor. If you, to your point, if you say you don't have any competition, two things are probably likely true. One, you didn't do your research. Or two,
there's a reason that no one has done this.
Nobody wants to do it.
So that's usually, for me, that's the first thing when someone says, how do I know if this idea is a good one? And researching that is also important, because as you're going through your ideation phase, if you realize, like, I have these 7 competitors, what makes you different? Like, what is your niche? And you have to be able to know that to even be able to, in my opinion, build a solid foundation if or when it's time to execute on that idea.
Right. Also, to your point, sometimes you have a great idea, wrong person. And that might be hard for some people to swallow that pill. But sometimes you have a great idea, but you're not the person to execute it. And I literally was talking to a founder, and they were telling me about their idea. And I was like, okay, this is a great idea. Who else is doing this? And then I recently saw a founder raise money for a similar idea, and thought, oh man, their competition, the backgrounds of their competition and like the resources is going to put them so far ahead. So how can they close the gap around that? Or, which is probably what needs to happen, they're missing some critical person from their team.
Facts. Yeah, and I think that's the thing, like when you are, I mean, you're an investor. So, that team slide is so important. And even if you are a solo founder, an investor is likely going to be more interested in someone who has some form of background or experience in it. Not 100% of the time, but you're likely as an investor going to sway more towards the person who has some form of experience, or someone on their team, or some advisor who has that. And so you're right. Great idea. You just might not be the person that should be executing it.
Yeah. And previously, the moat used to be, like in technology, the moat used to be engineers, right? And although that still is like very high up on the list, it's no longer the single moat, right? Because now it is the person who has the expertise in the space that's going to like win the day at the end of the day, particularly with the development of AI and all these different, ways to just figure out things, right? It's going to be the person with the relationships, with the resources, who can raise the money. And
they know the space in and out.
Who knows the loopholes in and out.
I'll give a perfect example. I will say maybe at least I get 10 to 20 emails a month, sometimes more, with someone who says, I had this idea for this fintech. Like there's some fintech app, some fintech platform that's like, I had this idea. Can you help me? Can you advise me? And honestly, a lot of times I don't take the call. I'll just do like an email exchange, because what I get them to realize up front is I am in no way taking away from your idea. I am no way taking from your ambition. But unless you understand the regulatory landscape of what it's going to take for you to do that, you're gonna waste my time. I'm gonna waste your time. Like, let me just give you what you need to see if the idea that you had, that you even want to do it anymore. Mm-hmm. Because you're about to enter into a space that's so regulated and that is so archaic, and it's going to give you the biggest headache. You need so much money to make it work. I'm going to give you that information, and then you come back to me and tell me if you think you are the person, or if this idea is even worth it anymore to you. So even for that, like, I eliminate a lot of it that way. And again, for me, it's not about taking away someone's ambitious goal or someone's ambitious idea or them wanting to be innovative. It's just about sometimes knowing the space, being the right person, and maybe, again, you're just not the person to execute it.
Yeah. And the other thing is, can you take your idea to a minimum viable product, right?
MVP.
And so that's another signal for me for when I invest. And I always think about, okay, has this person done enough work before they came to me to actually show me something where I can say, oh, I can see where you're going here, right? Oftentimes that's not the case. Like, people are still very much so in, oh, I have an idea, can I pick your brain? I just want to go on the record and say, unless you're like a close friend of mine that got my number in your phone, I really don't want for you to pick my idea, pick my brain. I really don't want to spend my time. That's for your friends.
Yeah.
That's for the whoever is right before me. That's the person. Pick their brain. Go ask ChatGPT. Pick ChatGPT's brain because they actually will come back with some great stuff. And then once you have picked ChatGPT's brain and they have purposed all this excellent material and discovery for you and show your competitors, the next stage, whatever you do after that,
I care about maybe.
I might care about that.
Yeah. I feel like, really quickly to this point, I think that people sometimes, like, they might hear that and be like, oh, like, she's so mean or she's not approachable.
Hey, someone told me about threads. Be humble. Sign that NDA.
But listen, when you get to be around people who are amazing at what they've done, I'm talking about Michael Steele, for example. Like, Michael will take a call with you for like 10 minutes, but you better not waste them 10 minutes. Or you that's it. No more 10 minutes for you. But that 10 minutes, he gonna be very blunt. He gonna be very straightforward. Say what you gotta say, and let's get off this call. Like Mark Cuban will tell you, he will reply to a text or email all day, but you got a few seconds to say what you gotta say. Let's get to the point. Either be so yes or no, and I gotta keep moving.
Yeah.
So I think people feel like you're being harsh when you say that, but if you ever get the chance to speak to the guys or the women who've been able to do it at a level that they're now millionaires and billionaires, they will give you 10 minutes.
Yes.
You only get 10 minutes.
Blunt because I just know that I'm blunt, but I'm also kind in a way that I don't want you to set yourself up for the next person who won't be as kind.
Yes.
And instead of you going to the next person and that person could have really helped put some the seed type of money that you need, it's best that you hear from me because I wish that I had me when I was pitching early on, right? So I do think that is a thing. But yes, people definitely say that I'm blunt and like straight to the point when it comes to stuff. But that's just because time is money and time is valuable. And I try to give my time to as many people as possible. And so I think that's why I'm also very blunt, or like you said, like Michael.
Like, quick.
Yeah.
And I love Michael. But the reason I feel like I can still pick up the phone now and say, Michael, can I get 10 minutes? Because I haven't wasted the 10 minutes I had the prior times. It's like, say what you got to say. Is it good? Is it bad? Change this. Come back to me. And it's like, bye. So I stay that way. Somebody will appreciate it later, trust me.
So I have a question for you. Have you had any ideas that were not validated and failed?
Oh, plenty. I got a whole book. That's when people be like, I got this idea, but I want to tell you, ma'am, sir, I got a book this thick of ideas. Sometimes they just don't take off. Even when I was doing Sheena Allen apps, which, mobile app studio, multiple apps, tens of millions of downloads. But there were definitely some apps that I was like working on, and I would get into it, and I was like, "Yep, that ain't it." Even when coming back out of Capway and trying to go like, "What am I going to do next?" I would pick up the phone and call, past investors or people in the space that I was trying to go into, and say, "Hey, I have this idea," and I'll example, I had this idea. It was around like social media, but it was more like ownership in certain ways. And I remember I picked up the phone and called Helen. Shout out to Helen Mann, who was one of my angel investors in Capway. But she used to work on the pages for Facebook, Meta. So I was like, it's kind of aligned in a way, not really, but like, yeah. So I picked up the phone, told this idea that I had. I'm thinking about potentially doing this next. And she said, let me tell you about some stories of how and why, if you can even get off the ground and if you can get some traction, why that's going to be the biggest headache ever for you. And I was like, appreciate it. You know what I did to the idea? Threw it out. Next. What's next on the list? So it's not, I didn't get to the point of executing it, and maybe it could have worked, but someone who had done that for a multi-billion-dollar company, someone who had that their platform touches billions of people, said, you might get off the ground, but likely XYZ is going to happen because those are the things that we dealt with once we got to that level of traction. That ain't what I'm trying to build. So next. So yeah, I've definitely had ideas. I did my ideation, which we're talking about now, and realized like that ain't worth executing. Good idea, probably not a good business.
Yeah. You mentioned Mark Cuban, and he was just on a podcast episode that I was listening to, and he was talking about one of his failed ideas was powdered milk. And I had to laugh. So I was like, why is Mark Cuban trying to sell people WIC? Because that's what it made me think about. In WIC, you get
Powdered
the
milk.
powdered milk. But, it's WIC. So people are paying their money, for it. And so he said, he's like, surely people will buy powdered milk because milk is so expensive. It's getting so expensive. So I know people want alternative. People did not want alternative.
They did not want powdered milk.
They did not want powdered milk as alternative to their whole milk, 2% milk. They didn't care how much milk was. They were not drinking this powdered milk. So I just thought that was funny because when you're in it, you could be thinking like, oh, wow, this is going to be the
greatest thing ever.
Of course, people are going to want this.
Yeah, no. I mean, have you ever had failed ideas? Especially, even when you were like, I'm going to work on something new.
Yeah, I think I've had definitely failed ideas, but also I have had like my prior company, I built that company. I'm talking about SGI. And then I was like, all right, I'm not going to continue to grow this company, right? I'm going to just like put it on autopilot and it do what it does, whatever it does, it does. And so for me, kind of pivoting and saying like, oh, I thought I was gonna take this to the moon, but now I'm like, no, that's not where this company is gonna go. It's gonna be like, oh, a nice to have, in the pocket, but it's not gonna be like next scale. And you and I, without revealing too much, are working on something. And I'm like, oh, shit, this feels a little saturated. Like, this space feels saturated. You're like, oh, no, we could go here, 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 here. I was like, all right.
And we're still figuring it out, to be honest.
We're trying to figure it out. And so I am definitely a person that will invest X amount of time and X amount of resources to see if something can be figured out, right? But I am at a point of my career where there is a limit to that. Whereas when I was younger, baby, I was blowing money like I had money to blow. You know what I mean?
And when you least like you got to blow.
I was going to wheel it.
Yeah.
One of my friends and thought partners, all these things, he was on a previous episode, Ishmael. He was like, some ideas can be willed into existence, right? Mm-hmm. And so I do believe like people who have such hard work ethics, etc., there are certain things that you could just like by sheer force, you could like just will them and force them into existence, right? Mm-hmm. And then there are some things that are just like, okay, I did what I said I was going to do to see if it worked. And if it does not work, it's kind of move on to the next thing. Yeah. That's where I am when it comes to like ideas.
Yeah. Well, I think, speaking of even going back to that and the level of validating the idea, I think one thing that people also miss when they're trying to figure out, some people unfortunately don't even go through the ideation process, it's also understanding the market and how big the market is and who their target audience is going to be. I think that's one area that I often see new founders or early stage founders, they miss out when they're trying to go from ideas to execution, or they've even built the MVP. They never get to product market fit, or it falls apart somewhere along the way because they didn't actually do their homework on the market. Like, so who are you marketing to? And we talk about red flags with investors. A red flag is if you're pitching to an investor and they ask you who's your target audience and you say everybody.
Yes. Probably not, unless you're OpenAI. I guess they could say like their entire market is everybody.
But OpenAI also been around since 2013, 14, and they got billions of dollars. Not the same.
Their starting market was probably not everyone.
Nonprofit. So their target audience they had a target audience when they started.
Yes. So I always say also that business is painful, and so many people just have not endured the level of pain that you'll have to go through to be successful in business. And then they realize they don't actually want to endure that pain, and they end up failing or just not moving forward, whatever that may look like, right? And that pain can change over time. So it may start with the pain of just not knowing what to do next, right? Like the pain of just not knowing how to actually do discovery, to reach out to your first customers, to pitch someone. That is a pain in itself. Now, over time, that pain might grow into something else, like hiring the right management team. And there is not a moment I think that a founder entrepreneur goes through where they're not at a point of pain because of something.
Yeah.
And I think those who can endure it and figure out a solution to that pain are the ones that ultimately are successful. But those who try to resist the pain, right? It's like, oh no, I feel pain. I'm trying to get out, right? Like
9 to 5. 9 to 5 is your answer.
right.
That is
How
the
about 9 to 5 is
solution.
your answer, right? If you feel pain and you can't take it and you feel like, oh my gosh, like this isn't fair or this, it's like, yes, because we all felt that way. But it's like, will you endure? Will you push through it? Will you find a solution? And that's going to determine whether or not your idea goes from idea to business, from an actual business idea to be able to like grow and scale and take it to the next level.
Yeah, it's entrepreneurship is not for the weak
No.
at all. Okay, so went through validating ideas. So we're talking about everything from your discovery should definitely be your friends. Let me say that. And to this day, no matter what level of success that I have reached, I do it to this day. If you go into my text messages, you will see me send friends, cousins, what do you think about this logo? Hey, quick idea. If I was to tell you this, would you use it? Like I do this to this day. Like I still go through true like discovery ideation phase, reaching out to friends and family to just ask them questions. So definitely do that. Understand your target audience. Understand your target. How big is the market? What else? Some other ones that we said. Competitive. Know your competitive landscape. These are all things that you should be figuring out and knowing when you're going through your ideation phase.
Yeah.
And when you're at the end of that, you should be able to say, this idea is at least worth me trying to execute on it, trying to see if I can bring it to life. And then if you get to that point where you've brought this idea to life, you realize like it's worth my time, it's worth me seeing where it goes. You're gonna have to either bootstrap it or you're gonna have to raise some money for it. If you're going to raise money for it, of course, there's options. There's angel investors, there's VCs, there's crowdfunding. But I will say, which kind of aligns with validating the idea and getting to execution. If you get to the point that you raise money, wherever you raise it from, angels, family and friends, pre-seed round from a venture firm, you got to be really smart with that money. And you're going to make mistakes because it's your first time raising money.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, I know for myself, I'm sure for you, I'm sure for all of our founder friends, we've gotten that pre-seed funding or we've gotten that seed funding and we've looked back and was like, yep, probably should have did something totally different.
Where did it go?
Where did it go? I think that's the number one thing. It's like, gosh, where did it go? And I will say when I remember in the Y Combinator and when it came time to raise money or like demo day, I remember Michael Siebel said, the only thing you can do with money is spend it. So you got to be very smart with how much you raise and what you're going to do with it. So if you're going to raise $20 million, at the end of the day, you're going to spend $20 million. Do you know where it's going to go?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, dang, like that. And by the time he had already pre-seed, so I had kind of already learned that lesson the hard way of like really knowing how much to raise, why you're raising, and exactly what the use of funds is going to be. So I had learned my lesson the hard way prior to. But I think that's really important you're going to raise money if that's the route you go. Even if you get a loan, it's still money that you got to pay back. When you get that money for that business, be very careful, very, very careful, and know what you're going to do with it.
Yeah, I think that oftentimes when you're first raising, where money tends to go is like people, right? And so going back to like who you hire, being sometimes a hard lesson or a painful lesson for a lot of people, but a very important one to get right. And one thing that I always hear from people who are just starting out is, well, I don't have these people in my network, Sevetra, to call, to ask. And I'm like, well, you need to open your network up. You need to go out and meet people who are in your space, because I didn't have those people in my network either when I first started. And so that's always something that I hear often. It's like, oh, I don't have these type of people around me. So how do I ask them to look at this or to look at my deck, to pitch, etc. That's why I say now, going back to ChatGPT is like sometimes that could be like your partner in what you're iterating on, even better than someone that is like a friend. And then the next stage of that is someone who has actually done it, experienced it, and can give you going back to emotional intelligence around your idea, and then if you want to raise capital for it or money for it, how to properly pitch it to investors, and then what those investors are going to ask you, what they're going to look for. I recently had a good friend of mine who you know, and I won't name, have an idea. Now, he's been telling me about this idea for over a year. And I'm like, if you don't stop telling me about this idea
And do it.
and like get going, like, what are you waiting for? Like, time is like really important, particularly right now. Over the next 1 to 5 years, so much is about to change. Like, people don't even realize. So if you have an idea, now is actually the time to do it, because there's going to be so many advancements in technology. If you thought that these AI babies and things were smart, just wait 5 years from now. We will be entering super intelligence. So the companies that are built today will be able to be built on some of that and will be like leading the way. Like in 5, 6, 7 years, it's going to be so hard to build a competitive company, I believe. So if you really do have an idea, like today is now the time. And so my friend finally took my advice, and I was like, oh, you should build like an MVP or like, you know, a prototype of something to show. So I spent a long time in doing this, and he shows it to me. He's about to go out and raise capital. I was like, all this time you haven't built the minimum viable product? Like he had the design, but he had spent so much time. I was like, you also should have something that you can show people, right? Where they maybe can play on it, et cetera, because he had been working on it for so long. Now I said, you're only raising $470,000. So he was only raising $470,000. I was like, I'm about to show you how to raise this money, because you wasted too much time. You wasted too much time. I'm about to show you how to raise this money. I'm about to send you an email of how to raise the money. I'm about to show you how to do the structure of the LLC to raise the money. I'm going to show you how to syndicate it. And you're going to stop wasting time. And you're going to stop wasting my time. And next time I hear from you, it better be an email saying, hello, we have kicked off our $475,000 angel syndicate. This is what it looks like. This is our traction. This is how much the minimum you can invest. And this is the deadline. I said, if I don't hear that from you, don't reach out to me about this company again.
Look at that bluntness.
I literally just gave him everything, like straight from my own emails to mimic.
I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, because most people won't have that.
Right. So I agree. A lot of people don't have that, which is why it's important to put yourself in those networks. And then when you actually have people who are willing to like literally give you, I'm talking about literally open up my email and say, this is how I raised a small angel syndicate of $500,000 from X amount investors. The minimum was $25,000. I put in a deadline. I sent it out to them. People responded, some people didn't. I said, if you're interested, let's jump on a call. Jumped on a call, went over it. That's how you eliminate people who are not interested, wasting your time, and get it done. I mean, it really is 1, 2, 3, 4. People overcomplicate things.
Have you heard back from them?
Nope. And so the next time I hear back from him, it better be, we're raising $475,000. And this is the email and all the information you need.
Listen, but I have no words, because I feel like that's the thing. People, they have the idea, they take forever to execute on it. And one thing is, going back to even people saying, well, I don't have these people in my network. Harold, shout out to Harold Hughes, is a good friend of ours. So Harold has this thing, and let me back up really quickly. In building what I was going to build next, I always went back and forth with him, was like, you know, when I finally get it, I built Capway in public. Like, I don't know if I want to build this company, this next company, so just like in front of everybody, because there's pros and cons to it. And he was like, you gotta build it. You gotta build it in public. I know,
he's so, I gotta build everything in public.
Gotta build in public. There's pros and cons to it. So he's like, no, you gotta build in public. You gotta build in public.
I get where he comes from, though.
Yeah, I mean, but I say to say, like, if you have an idea, my point in this, telling that story too, is like, if you have an idea, one, you can't be afraid to say it out loud. Because one thing that he does say, like, if you speak out on what you're working on, especially if you don't have a network, the chance of someone seeing it and saying, hey, I'm working on something similar, or maybe I can help you out, or hey, I know that you have been posting a lot about you working on Project X. There's a meetup that's happening next month. that I think will be perfect for
Yes.
you. So you can't be afraid to speak on your idea because you don't know who is seeing it and who can help you out. Particularly again, if you don't have the network. Now, if you want to build in silence, if you're someone who have I built Catway in public and I say, no, what I don't want to build this next company in silence. In public. I want to build it, in stealth mode in silence. The difference for me is I have a network that I'm still behind the scenes.
Right.
I'm sending
Big
an email
difference.
to and saying, I'm working on this. Like, can you introduce me to XYZ or what do you think about that? But if you are just idea stage, you are very early, you don't have the network, put your idea out there. For the third time in this episode before we wrap up, no one cares about your idea. We only care about execution.
Or I say, no one cares. No one wants to steal your idea because most people can't execute their own ideas.
Also facts. So if you have an idea, get it out there, execute on it, and see what happens. But again, please go through the ideation phase, like discovery phase, ideation phase, validating your idea. Because for the fourth time, every good idea does not equate to a good business. And business equals money. So make sure your idea can make you some money.
Yes. And one other note around building in public, because building in public basically means that you're very visible, right?
Yeah.
I think that you could build in public, meaning that you can let people know what you're building so they can help you, but you don't have to be on every stage. And so I think that oftentimes founders of color, women, Black, Asian, Hispanic, we get caught up because people constantly request us. Now, we are in a different age right now because DEI is not on the forefront. But I remember when we were building, you get so many emails from people wanting you to fly to South by Southwest, to be on this panel, be on this panel, to be on that panel. You could get caught up in that because you feel like, oh, you're in demand. And in reality, you need to be in the office
building. Yeah. You have to balance it. You have to balance it.
And so that's definitely a mistake that I felt like I got caught up in a lot as a founder, with saying yes to every opportunity, which was an opportunity, to fly this way, fly that way, to be on someone's panel, to be on someone's stage, to talk about what I was doing for 20, 30 minutes. Yeah. When I took, 2 days to be able to get there, to get back home, all these things, I would eliminate that.
And time, you just said time is everything. So that's 2 days you lost. That
2 days I lost. Preparation, all of that, you have to equate into the time you lose when you get called to do things. So not that you should do everything. I would definitely limit the things.
Yeah. Pick the ones that you feel actually gives you a true return of investment.
Yep. Sales opportunity, marketing opportunity to your core market.
Yeah. I know if I go speak on this panel at this conference, I know the chance of an investor or a customer being in the audience or being there is going to be over 75%. Exactly. Cool, I'm going.
Right. People will have you on stages that have nothing to do with your core product, with your core audience, just because,
you're in demand.
You're in demand. They want to have you speak to whatever they're doing to. So that's my rich lesson for the day.
No one cares about your ideas. My rich lesson. Execute, execute, execute.
All right.
Until next time.
I can't reach you, but I'm going to do it.